This meeting is being recorded.
It's for your edification there. Share our screen.
I better turn off my video then.
Yeah, right.
Bad hair day.
So this is a clip from obviously The Matrix. It's one of the well-known clips, but I think it's just relative, very related in terms of what we're talking about letting go. So we'll watch this. Turn the volumes up.
I know what you're trying to do.
I'm trying to free your mind, Neo, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it. Tank, load the jump program.
You have to let it all go, Neo. Fear, doubt, and disbelief.
Free your mind.
Whoa. Okie dokie. For my mind.
So what if he makes it?
No one's ever made the first jump.
I know. But what if he does?
He won't.
Right. No problem. Free my mind. Free my mind. No problem. Right.
What does that mean?
It doesn't mean anything.
So he actually, I'm gonna pin myself here. So he actually says it, you gotta let it all go. So he's talking about letting go of fear, doubt, and disbelief, which we'll get into. And also, by the way, as we talk about what, we talk about letting go, what is that? What and why are gonna be very closely related. They're gonna cross over a lot, but we might spend quite a bit of time on what. So letting go of fear, doubt, and disbelief. When you think about letting go in the sense that we're talking about it with Out of the Matrix, Course in Miracles, David Hawkins' book, Letting Go, what exactly are we talking about letting go of?
Or misbeliefs.
Misbeliefs, absolutely. That certainly rings true with what we teach, right?
Yep.
The misbeliefs, that runs perfect with Out of the Matrix. I'm gonna get rid of how and why for a minute. So misbeliefs, what else are we trying to let go of?
Our identity.
Yeah, our identity.
Attachment to outcome.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one, Bruce.
So
Yeah.
Attachment to outcome, I'm gonna abbreviate that, attachment to outcome. Okay, what else? That's what I'm saying, that we could go on for a while, but keep going. What else are we trying to let go of?
I would say maybe our negative emotions.
Sure.
Possibility,
Go
or
with that, negative emotions,
and that could tie in with addictions too.
addictions, yeah.
Here goes the bucket list.
Yeah. Attachment to outcome is sort of related to control, trying to let go of control, right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. And especially the idea of letting go of control flies in the face of the ego and matrix thinking, right? Because it says that we should be in control. We should control, in fact, we should be in so much control that we can dictate some outcomes that's being attached to that outcome, right? What else are we trying to let go of?
Also, want to let go of judgments of numerous things, including judging oneself for doing any of this stuff wrong. You know, I swore that I would not be attached to the outcome, but this happened and I got upset. So I'm going to beat myself up because I failed.
Yeah, so it's judgments in general, more specifically, they're saying letting go of the need to do it right. Right, and there's judgment in there, as if there's some
Yes,
right way to
yeah.
do it. Other stuff that we're letting go of, or that you guys have let go of in your lives?
This might fall under Bruce's judgments, but good and bad, like the definitions of good and bad.
Sure, yep. Yeah, that absolutely falls under judgments. And it also
Did
falls
we-
under doing it right as well. Go ahead.
Did we already cover attachments, like attachments to things, people, places, things? That's a
No.
challenge I have.
No, we did attachments to outcomes, but we did not do attachments to people,
Places and things.
places,
Huh?
and things.
I was just going to say that.
See, I read your mind.
Material things in particular
There you go.
sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's also a word that gets used for this that isn't the typical use of this word, but in this sense, it's the word that gets used in spiritual venues a little bit, which is forgiveness.
Mhm.
Not that I'm saying that's something we need to let go of, but I'm saying this is sort of encapsulating forgiveness by letting go of all the stuff. And we could go on and on with all the stuff to let go of, because it's all about letting go of attachments to the worldly kind of stuff. Okay. And I said this is sort of connected with the why, so we'll get to the why a little bit later. But if you got rid of all this stuff, if you stop being attached, if you were able to let go of negative emotions, addictions, judgments, the need to do things right, attachments to people, places, and things. So one of the issues that comes up for folks when they think about getting rid of all this stuff, what emotion might come up for them? Ego related.
Fear,
Yes, right here, fear. That's
big
right.
time.
Yeah, get
Yep.
afraid of, because again, we're attached to all these ideas, and they're the way we've operated our entire lives. And when we read these spiritual documents or these spiritual ideas about forgiveness and the idea of letting go of all this stuff, well, then what would I have? We're afraid
Yeah.
of what would I have, or who, or more specifically, who would I be without all this?
My
That's,
fear would I would not be existing.
yeah, I think people are afraid that they wouldn't. That's a great way to put it, Neville. People would say that they would be afraid that they don't exist anymore because their existence is so attached to all this kind of stuff. And of course, we haven't listed everything. There's all kinds of other things. Okay.
Yeah, your identity. You lose a lot of your identity when you let go of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you also
I
have-
experienced that when I let go of my house and moved out, made a major move.
yeah. So fear, and then also doubt about what's on the other side of this if I let go of all those things, right?
Yep.
Big time.
Yeah. And then disbelief. Let's think about how letting go of all that stuff. Yeah, we gotta let go of this idea of disbelief in the fact that there can be something on the other side. Okay. But I think fear and doubt really relate here. But what are we told we're going to get if we let go of all these things? Like spiritual documents say, don't have fear or doubt, do this, and what do you get? What will you get?
Enlightenment.
Yeah, well, enlightenment.
Peace. I don't know.
Peace, yeah.
Yeah, I think peace of mind is what we're told, right? We'll have peace of mind if we
Yeah.
do this process. And I think some of us, maybe everybody here tonight, has had the experience of doing this to some extent and having that sense of peace of mind. I don't know, have you guys had that experience of moments where you've let go of things and you get more peace and it was hard for you to imagine that?
Yeah.
I mean, especially letting go of outcomes. So that's sort of what we're talking about when we talk about the what. That's some idea. Any other thoughts about what we're letting go of this process? We're also, the other thing that we're letting go of is attachment to the body.
Chris,
Yeah,
talking about letting go as if it were one thing.
Right,
but it isn't.
right.
Well, you're going through all kinds of different attributes, so yes, it isn't, but we talk about responsibility and forgiveness and acceptance because there's different levels. There's no universal understanding. It's the same thing, I'd say, with letting go, because letting go is virtually the same as acceptance.
Yeah. It's very similar. Has sort of a different bent, but you're right. And that's why I'm hoping to do with what, why, and how, we start to get a clearer definition of what it is, like we did with acceptance last week. We've got a clearer distinction for what acceptance exactly is by doing that. I'm hoping to do that with letting go, because it's sort of a nebulous thing, because people in the matrix would think about letting go totally differently than what we're talking about, which is often the case. Often the stuff, acceptance, forgiveness, letting go are talked about differently in the matrix than when we're talking about it as an aspect of getting out of the matrix.
Right, because of all these different levels. And I don't see how letting go differs from acceptance. Is there something simple that you can point to?
Letting go is different than acceptance. No, I think you're right. I think they're very similar.
Well, but I'm not talking about very similar. I'm talking about identical.
Oh, identical. Yeah. So you want something that points out the difference between the two?
Yeah, show me how they're very similar instead of identical.
Yeah, I guess I would say letting go, this is just off the top of my head, so forgive me, but off the top of my head, I would say letting go is a step above acceptance, in the sense that acceptance is being okay with these things and loving these things. Letting go is not having attachment to them at all. How does that sit for people?
Hmm. Hmm.
I might need to give Bruce a week to think about that.
Maybe a
I think
couple.
I might need to think about that too, because I don't know. I mean, I've let go of a lot of things recently, but I still have an attachment to them.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say, again, like all these other things, we put on a scale of 1 to 10. So,
But I think that accepting at the highest level, choosing, I don't see why there would necessarily be an attachment remaining.
no, but I think I think you could recognize that you chose it and still be attached to it. I think you could.
Yes.
I think you can say, I'm okay with it, I love it, I chose it, but I can still have an attachment to it. I think the next level is letting go. In other words, whether or not this is in my life, it doesn't matter.
Well,
That's what I come up with off the top of my head, Bruce. It was a good question. Like, what's the difference? That's where I would put it off the top of my head.
that may be it. I'm not sure.
So, and you guys noodle that around. If you come up with a different idea, please share. And that's a great, again, Bruce, that's a great question, because it really does draw up the distinction, at least a distinction that we can come up with for tonight of what the difference is. And that makes sense to me as we talk about that. So letting go is I'm not, and we mentioned attachment a couple of times, but I have no attachment to these things. Whether or not they're in my life, it doesn't matter. And I think that means that I'm going to be at peace of mind whether they're in my life or not.
Mhm.
So maybe go ahead.
You know what might be a compromise is that you may be correct, and what's missing is letting go as the highest level of acceptance.
Yeah, I think I was sort of saying that very thing, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it would be the next step of acceptance is letting go.
But it would. So that would make acceptance at the highest level identical.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that it was maybe missing from the original acceptance discussion.
Sure. Yeah, and so it would make sense that we did acceptance last week and doing letting go this week as possibly the highest level of acceptance.
Yeah,
So anyway, so that's sort of the what. So really, we're getting to sort of a clear definition, which is true top level letting go. Because the other thing is we're talking about the levels of acceptance, and maybe letting go is the highest level of acceptance. But even within letting go, I think there are levels. Like Mary Lou talked about, I feel like I've let go of some things, but I still have some attachment to them. If we're going with this definition that we're talking about, then we're saying she's not at a zero. Zero meaning I have no attachment to this. And that would be interesting to know. And one of the things, again, in a lot of spiritual documents they talk about is one of the biggest issues we have is the attachment we have to our body. And so how do we let go of that attachment to our body is recognizing that we exist beyond our body. That's the question I ask people. Do you believe that some part of you existed before you were born? Or I'm sorry, do you believe that some part of you will continue to exist after you die? Then you must believe that some part of you existed before you were born, and that part of you is more real than your body, because your body's going to come and go, but that part of you that was here before your body and is here after your body continues to exist, so it's more real than the body. And that's one of the intellectual ways that I learned to let go of attachment to the body. And again, not that I'm perfect at it by any stretch.
Say that again.
So I often ask the question, do you believe that some aspect of you will continue to exist after you die? And the vast majority of people say yes. And then I say, well, then you must believe that some aspect of you existed before you were born. When they think about that for a minute, they say, yeah, I get that. And then I say to them, well, then that part of you is more real than your body because it exists before and it exists after. So it's got at least a longer existence. We would say it's eternal, but it certainly is around a lot longer than your body. So it's more real than your body.
so, so now you're introducing levels of real.
Levels of real. What do you mean?
You're talking about
Yeah.
whatever you constituted you prior to your birth was more real than your body. So there's levels of real, which I think is a good way of introducing people to the concept of the illusory world.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. We don't necessarily go there on the weekend, but I usually don't bring up that topic about the body in somebody's first weekend, right? In the weekend, we usually don't get into the fact that, that reality. Sometimes we dip into that level, but usually it comes up more in a reloaded session or, later on with folks. And we brought that up as this idea. It's one of the ways to think about detaching from the body. If there's some aspect of me that's around before and after, then how important is the body? So it's just a way to get people to wrap their noodle around that idea.
So Chris, what advice would you have about people, like, I think some of us could look at, like, confuse that with disassociating from our bodies, like, or like with a trigger, like leaving the body to not feel the trigger, so I guess what is the difference in your mind between disassociating and recognizing?
Yeah, this is a conscious process. Dissociation, I would say, is a subconscious process. In other words, it happens without my forethought. I'm not choosing it. It's happening out of my control, I guess, for lack of a better.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So I dissociate because I'm in a traumatic situation and it just took over. Whereas here, I'm making a conscious choice to say, I'm not attached to my body.
Okay.
Is
there any benefit to, or is there a difference between not being attached to the body and then, like, loving the body, being connected to the body and having spiritual experiences, like, in conjunction with the body?
Yeah, so we would say you want to love the body. And remember, when we talk about acceptance and letting go, when I hate the body or dislike the body or just feel okay about the body, I can't let it go. One of the things that happens with this is one of the common metaphysical phrases is you can't kill a sick ego. So in other words, we can't let go of this belief that we're a body when we hate our body or hate ourselves. You have to move up this ladder of acceptance and get to the point where I love this body and then recognize that I chose to be in this body before I can let go of my awareness of this body. So you had mentioned loving the body. That is an important step in this process. I don't believe that you can go, or at least most people can't go from hating themselves and hating their body to letting go of it. I think it's a process that you go through, those steps that you go through of acceptance. But there was some other part of your question, Lee. I'm not sure I answered it. Or ask me again.
No, I think that was it.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
Esther
Cindy
Hicks.
Stanley. Cindy Stanley is working on, I don't know, a paper or a book or something, busting loose from the body, based on busting loose from the money game.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Bruce, you were going to say?
Yeah, Esther Hicks has said you can't struggle your way to joy.
Yeah.
So when you're hating your body, judging your body, or anything else, that doesn't get you to where you want to be.
Right. Yeah. So as we go through this, what I think about when we're talking about letting go of really is attachments.
Yeah.
That's sort of a short-term definition of what we're letting go of is attachments. All this is attachments to outcome, to negative emotions, to addictions, to judgments, to doing it right, to people, places, things, to the body, to my identity, to misbeliefs. It's all about attachments. So we're letting go of attachments. How's that sound to people? That makes sense?
Yep.
And of course, I know that's a big thing in, I think it's Buddhism, where they talk a lot about, Buddha talks about one of the biggest issues for people is their attachments. All right, so that's our what. So then we go to how. So how do we go through this process of letting go? Oh, I'm sorry, it's what, why, and then how. So first we go with why. So I said they were sort of attached, the why, the what, and the why, and we kind of got into the why a little bit there. So why are we letting go of attachments?
For peace of mind.
Yeah, peace of mind, P of M. In the hopes of what?
Opening up to something new.
Okay.
To me, it's being free.
New for freedom.
Freedom. Yeah.
Yeah. Limitless freedom.
Limitless freedom.
Like,
Not, not feeling burdened, I guess.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, freedom, not burden. And so in out of the matrix vernacular, we're getting in touch with our limitless reality when we do this. It is the attachments that limit us from seeing our limitless reality. Okay, so that's an out of the matrix term. So we are letting go of attachments to get out of the matrix and have some freedom. And we witness that that's why the movie's so fantastic with this, that we witness that when you're Morpheus and you've let go of all those attachments, you can jump from building to building. You can do all kinds of limitless things. Okay. So that's one of the ideas that they posit in the movie. And remember, he said, get rid of fear, doubt, and disbelief, and then you've got freedom to do whatever you want within that program, or almost anything. Okay. So that's sort of out of the matrix vernacular. In spiritual vernacular, we would say we're trying to get in touch with our spiritual reality. By letting go, by the why of letting go is so I have peace of mind. Remember last week when you did acceptance, peace of mind leads to connection with your inner guide and therefore your spiritual reality. Okay. Again, in out of the matrix vernacular, it's limitless being, and freedom certainly applies to both. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? To me, that's the primary why, is for peace of mind. And certainly spiritual leaders, spiritual documents, certainly sell us on the idea that that's why you do this. That's why you let go, because you get to the level of peace of mind. And I think for most of you who are on the call tonight, we've had the experience of, as I let go of attachments to things, life gets easier, it gets lighter, I get lighter, life gets lighter. Enlightenment, I get lighter, life gets lighter, and I get enlightenment, or I get enlightened. So questions or comments about that process? That one's a little bit easier than the what. And again, it goes back to last week, peace of mind. And I think peace of mind is key. And this is and I think the reason that so many people in the world are searching for peace of mind is because it does connect them to their inner guide and their spiritual reality. And on some level, they know that. That's why we have people meditating. That's why we have people, pausing. That's why we have people buying insurance, right? Remember, insurance companies are all saying, buy our insurance and you'll have peace of mind, right? Well, I think one of the reasons unconscious for a lot of people, or subconscious for a lot of people, is they recognize their peace of mind is a reflection of their spiritual reality. Okay. And again, remember, the way that works is I'm existing here as a physical body and believe this is who I am, when in reality, I'm a spiritual being existing somewhere else. Or not somewhere else, but in a different energy pattern, different vibrational level, let's say. And my inner guide is the communication device that speaks to me in my body, or what I feel like is my reality in this body, from this spiritual reality. Okay. And again, we want to vibrate at the level of peace of mind up here, because that is the level that our inner guide can speak to us at. And that's the vibrational level. Remember, we talked about the radio station, the broadcast from the radio station. 98.5 is broadcasting all the time. I need to dial my radio into 98.5 to pick it up. Your inner guide, your peace of mind, your spiritual reality is communicating with you all the time. You need to dial into its network. And so that's one of the reasons we want to let go, to get to peace of mind, to dial into that network. Make sense? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, questions about any of that? All right, good. So then the question becomes how do we let go of all these attachments? So any comments on how you guys have done that? How you have worked to let go of things? So this is also where we start to get into a little bit of specifics, in the sense that we have a very specific process. One of the things we talked about letting go of was misbeliefs. So we have a very specific process in Out of the Matrix for letting go of misbeliefs. Okay. And our idea in Out of the Matrix is that almost all of those other things that we talked about, letting go of, that long list we had up here, is related to our misbeliefs. In other words, if I feel like I'm not good enough, NGE, not good enough, then I'm going to be much more, and remember, we put things on a scale of 1 to 10. So if my not good enough is an 8, I'm going to have a lot more judgment than if my not good enough is a 2. I'm going to have probably have a lot more attachment to stuff, to people, to things, to outcomes. Because again, when I feel not good enough, I look outside of myself for resolution. When I feel good about myself, much better about myself, my not good enough belief is a 1 or a 2 down here, then I don't need as much outside effect to feel okay about myself, or what I think would make me feel okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So are you asking for like tools that we use for the how?
Yeah. I wanted to get into this one first, but so again, the cascade of things that we listed initially as the what gets taken care of, we believe, in Out of the Matrix a lot by letting go of this misbelief. And so I just wanted to go through that process real quick. We go through this all the time, but it's important to cover this all the time, which is this idea that conscious and subconscious, conscious, subconscious, it's a crooked looking snowman, but conscious, subconscious, remember, this is 95% is what Joe Dispenza said today, or what I read from Joe Dispenza today. 5% is conscious. And these misbeliefs, not good enough, exist in our subconscious mind. and they run the show for us. And they run the show subconsciously until we get in touch with them. Our buttons get pushed, we become conscious of it, and we make a choice to let it go. So that's part of this process. And again, as we reduce the number of that belief in our life, everything else starts to take care of itself. Fair enough?
Mhm.
And part of the reason for that is projection. All this stuff that we have in our subconscious mind, we project, and we project unconsciously. Subconsciously, we're projecting, we don't even know. And that's why when we become conscious of it, we can make a choice not to project anymore. But we can't make the choice to project if we're not even aware of it. Okay, and so the projection shows up as all those judgments, all those attachments, all that control, all that people pleasing for blues out there. Okay, all that comes from the projections that we have about our false beliefs that we have. Okay, so again, I really believe that a lot of the stuff that we listed as the what gets taken care of if we reduce the number of our misbelief, and if we get rid of the misbelief, then all that stuff goes away. We get rid of misbeliefs entirely. So that said, yes, Leah, for the rest of you, I'm asking for you guys, how else have you let go of different things? What's the letting go process look like for you guys?
So what popped into my mind was, there is no try, just do.
Tell me what you
That's
mean.
probably more, I mean, that could be, you don't try to leave a relationship, you just do it. You don't try to leave a house, you just do it. I think a lot of our time is spent trying. We want to let go of something, but we're afraid to.
Yes, and we saw that in the video. There was no trying on the part of Morpheus. He just did it. Whereas Neo was there, he was trying. And so you're absolutely right. Part of the process, part of the problem is that we, in the ego world, in the matrix world, we're all about trying and putting effort in. But effort won't get you there, which is such a counterintuitive idea, because we're all about effort and doing things. And so we want stuff to do. So how do we not do? I think not doing.
How do we not do?
How do you instead of, I'm sorry, how do we not try and just let things happen? The word that comes up for me is allow. Allowing. So when we get into this idea of just allowing things to happen, and this goes back to acceptance, right? Allowing and acceptance are very similar.
Rest pops up for me. So like rest is my word. I would say like resting from my job, from my life, from working out. I mean, rest always helps me heal and let go.
Okay. Yeah.
I think
You're talking about physical rest though, right?
Physical, mental, emotional, all of it.
Yeah. So
Not
here's one of
not
the, I think that's probably a step on the ladder, but here's one of the things that's about that is it tends to be related to the body in the sense that when I rest my body, then my mind can rest. And I think if you learn this process, your body can be active and you're still resting.
I think
So how do you do that? So how does the body remain active and you're resting? You're not attached to an outcome. Things are much easier if you're not attached to an outcome. So the story that I've told the last couple of the Matrix weekends is the lady who they were running the downhill in the Olympics, the women's downhill in the Olympics. And they had all the top ladies go and they figured out who's going to win the gold, the silver, and the bronze. And they left the broadcast. They went on to show some other sport. And then 20 minutes later, they break in because some woman who had never done a downhill race was a cross-country skier, and this was her first professional downhill race, had broken the record on that run in that Olympics. She'd gotten the fastest time. It was the first time she'd ever competed in a downhill professionally, or even amateur. She'd never competed in downhill. It was her first time ever doing it. And so why did that happen for her? Because she was not attached to an outcome. She was just out there skiing, enjoying herself. She didn't think she was going to win. No one thought she was going to win. She didn't have that in her mind. And she ended up winning because she put no attachment to the outcome. And so her effort in that sense was limited. By all measure, this woman should not have done anything in this downhill race, and she ended up winning it. And I think it's because she was at rest. Her mind was at rest. She had no worries, even though her body was. And I bet you, when she was done with the race, she was not worn out. The other ladies probably came across like, worn out. She probably came down feeling refreshed and good, and looked up and saw her time and couldn't believe it. So that's what I mean about the body can be active, and you can still be at rest if you're not attached to an outcome. Does that make sense?
I think that a way to do that.
A little bit louder, Bruce.
I'm sorry. Two things I think that will help with that are forgiving yourself for having these attachments, and expressing gratitude for whatever. When you're expressing gratitude, you're certainly not focused on attachments.
Yeah. And you hear that from some athletes who say, they're just grateful to be there, or for performers, musicians, someone who's performing at their high level. They can get into the idea they're just grateful to be able to do this experience. It's not about any particular outcome. And for me, even as a presenter, one of the shifts that took place for me was not needing an outcome from the students. In other words, when we first started out of the Matrix, I was very tied to how much someone took in and bought into what we were teaching. And later on, I realized, that's not valuable for me or for them. If somebody doesn't want to take it in, that's fine. They don't have to take it in. And it doesn't mean anything about me. But you can also see how that's attached to those false beliefs. When I'm not good enough is a 10 or an 8, then you damn straight, I want those people who are listening to me to tell me I'm wonderful, right? But when it's a 1 or a 2, I'm not so attached to what people think of my presentation or my performance. I'm just there, grateful that I can do it, appreciated what I'm doing. And the strange thing is you become a better teacher when you're not attached to the outcome. You become better at
Those
everything.
attachments are like anchors.
Say it again, Bruce.
The attachments are like anchors.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, attachments are like anchors. Yep, they weigh you down.
Yeah, and limit your latitude.
Yeah.
How much you can really do, because you're tied to that specific thing or outcome.
Yeah.
Person. You're tethered.
And I wanted to go back to, Leah, your comment about resting. I think the other version that I'm sure you do this is meditation. So that's a little different kind of a rest, right?
Yeah, I was actually referring to that, not the physical rest, but yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not dissing on physical rest. I think that is an aspect of this, and it's somewhere on the ladder. But meditation is another level, and maybe we need to do some levels with this. But meditation is the idea of meditation is letting go of attachment to the body. Like I let go of my attachment to my body through this meditation. So that's an active, conscious process of letting go of attachment to my body. So that to me is meditation is one of the ways that you can do this letting go process. Okay, letting go of attachments through meditation. And I'm not a great teacher of meditation. I can certainly guide some people through some meditations. I meditate regularly, but I couldn't tell you the science. The nice thing is Joe Dispenza will say, and Jesus says this in Jesus, my autobiography, and in Year of Forgiveness, he says it very clearly. This is science that we're talking about. Like when he talks about the meditation, when he talks about the process of shifting this stuff, and Joe Dispenza says the same thing, it's science. It's simple science. And Joe Dispenza, I'm rereading his book. Here it is, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. He gets into great detail of this in this process. Real specific detail scientifically of what this process is that we're talking about, really about letting go, but about meditation. And so the process of meditation and letting go of attachment to the body, you know, there's some real great meditation teachers out there that can get into the specifics of that. I know I've certainly had some out-of-body experiences. My first out-of-body experience actually was, I went to a Course in Miracles class with Tony on Tuesday night for the very first time, listened to him talk, went home and laid down and had this amazing out-of-body experience. And so, you know, I knew that something special was happening around that. So the first time I ever heard him talk, that's what happened. Of course, I went back the next week and wanted it to happen again, and it didn't, because I was trying, right? Like I went and I wanted this to happen.
Expectation, right.
Yeah, I got attached to that outcome. I want that same outcome now. Whereas before I wasn't asking for anything, it just happened.
You know, a pretty simple, like a very low level, probably tactic for letting go is journaling. I know a lot of people will do that and it helps them.
I like it. That's absolutely, you're right. That's a beautiful one. Yeah, I didn't think of that. And I got tons of journals, and it is journaling, talking.
Yeah.
Talking to people is a way of letting go. Now, some people will use journaling and talking to become more attached, right? So you gotta be careful of careful how you're using it. But if you're going through this process, hopefully you're using it to let go. And I absolutely find that when I journal stuff and write stuff down, it helps me release it and let it go. Or when I talk to, you know, Bruce or Tony or Neville or someone who, you know, knows this process and have them talk me through stuff, it helps me let go. So talking to people, what else? Or some basic stuff. And the basics are important, by the way. I don't want to downplay basics. Journaling, talking,
dancing, exercise, you know, but I mean, that's very physical, but still.
Yeah, still, that can be.
Breath work.
And, you know, dancing spiritually has been a huge thing for lots of cultures throughout the history of mankind. So that's a huge way for the native cultures have used to let go of stuff. So absolutely. You said something else, Leah.
Breath work.
Breath work, yeah. And sort of in regards to talking, we can talk about therapy if it's done the right way. Okay. Oftentimes therapy is used to make attachments greater, which is an issue. So you got to be careful with what kind of therapist you're with and how they're explaining things to you. But journaling, talking, exercise, dancing, breath work. Yeah, those are some basics that we can use, and they're wonderful use. They're all wonderful techniques to use in this process. We could probably come up with some more, and we can put meditation in there as one of them. And meditation is a little more passive. The other ones, breath work, dancing, exercise, talking, journaling, are a little more active. And, you know, some combination of those is probably great. I know Reiki is one also. What's the movement one that Tony teaches? Tai Chi.
Tai Chi.
Tai Chi is a process for that. And it's all about energy movement, right? So there's all kinds of ways of how we do this process, okay? And again, out of the matrix, you can add in there real specifically is sort of a journaling and talking process. When you do your worksheets and you talk to somebody and you get walked through that process, it's a combination of those two active processes. We used to have a meditation piece that we did briefly on Friday nights. We took it out because we ran out of time, but meditation is also a process that you can add into that, okay? And Joe Dispenza teaches quite a few meditations that are apparently really powerful for people with healing and some of those kind of things. You know, we go back to, we're at how, and when we go back to why for a second, one of the other whys we let go, another why we let go is for healing. We didn't talk about that. But I think when you let go of all these attachments and all these judgments and attachments and judgments, and when you let go of that, I think you experience healing. So I think that's another why. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So peace of mind, healing. And then we can get into the sort of, I don't even want to call it lower level stuff, but other things like better relationships. You know, when I don't have the same attachments to things and the same judgments that I have, my relationships improve. Hopefully my work improves, my finances improve. Okay, all those things are part of the why that we do this process. And these are why these whys here are whys that we might appeal to people on the weekend, like that are more clear and relatable, that when I let go of attachment to judgments and outcomes, that I have better relationships, better work, better finances. That might speak to people better than, you know, jumping to this idea of I'm doing it to get in touch with my spiritual reality. That might be too much for people on the weekend.
Yep.
So questions, comments, thoughts about all that? I'm gonna develop that whole ladder piece a little bit more with acceptance, and maybe we'll get into that next week and look at the ladder of all this. You know, the not liking it, being okay with it, loving it, choosing it, letting it go. I like that. I like that idea a lot. All right, that's what I have tonight, folks, unless anybody has any questions or comments or concerns about anything. Thank you for all the input. I thought that was really valuable. I will come up with a date for the social this weekend. And then Tony and I are, this is sort of, the cat's got out of the bag a little bit, but we're looking at doing Out of the Matrix virtually in September and October. So we'll be looking for mentors for that. So as we nail down those dates, we'll let you guys know. We're going to do a Zoom Out of the Matrix. I'm going to fly down to Florida in June and get together with him and reformat the program a little bit so it's better for Zoom. And then we're going to match people up, hopefully one-on-one with mentors. And you'll have breakout rooms so you can meet with them individually. And the hope is to do it September, October over Zoom, and then in November, fly into the Philippines and do it live. That's the plan at the moment. Things evolve, so who knows what might change, but we'll start, we're gonna have a Zoom meeting with the mentors here sometime in the next month to 6 weeks to kind of go over some of those details. But I'll keep you guys in the loop about that.
Do they have a number of how many students are anticipating, or?
Not exact right now.